So what we're going to do this morning, I'm going to talk to you about the aims and objectives of the day in a moment and the expected results and outcomes. Okay? I'm going to talk to you about that. Kerry, are you going to chip in as well?
Aims and objectives?
In the results and outcomes, aims and objectives, you can join with me. And then by then the coffee should have arrived and tea. And then at 9:30, well, a few minutes after that, we're going to start the tender review scenario training. Okay? Now, this is really important, and if you engage with it well, your client companies will really like you forever. Okay? Because we have developed this methodology, and basically once a company goes through this training, it changes the way they think forever. Okay? So they become a better bidder. One of the big objectives of today is to know all about the tender review training. That's the morning. And then in the afternoon, the big objective is that by the time you leave here today, you know what's expected of you insofar as it comes to building consortiums. Okay? So if our project is going to succeed, it has to build bidding consortiums. Okay? So we can't leave it just to the lead to build a consortium. We all have to play a role. And Seamus is going to help us to see what our role is. And I know that, Luca, you've been looking for bids, haven't you? And you've identified some opportunities. So even thinking of that example, which you circulated this week, how do each of the rest of us kind of hook into that? So we build a consortium. How do we get a group of companies to work together and then we help them to win a bid? Now, if we can do this, how does that happen? Who did that? What are you doing? What are you doing? Sabotaging me. If we can do this, then our project will achieve something that has not been achieved before. We'll be special. You will be able to say, I was part of this special project. Because this is the big difficulty. Cross-border tendering is extremely difficult.
Okay, so before I just start introducing what you've picked up, as Dim has already mentioned, we're going to actually take you through an exercise for pretty much most of the morning leading up to the coffee break, and about half an hour thereafter the coffee break, looking at a particular exercise. So as the first bullet point says up on your screen there, participants will act as a reviewer and assess a fictitious smart city bid stroke submission. And that's pretty much what we'll be doing most of the morning. As part of our learning outcomes from this as a group, I hope it will help you understand common tendering weaknesses. Some of you are quite proficient in this area anyway. But as a group, hopefully we can all help each other spot those deficiencies in tendering, etc. Now, we've run this exercise in parts of Europe before. We've run it in Wales, we've run it in Ireland, and as Dermot has already pointed out, it has been pretty successful, really, from the point of us delivering it, so people have thought it was pretty useful information, but also the companies and the people that have been on the end of this type of training have also benefited. We've seen companies increasing their turnover by 50%, we've seen them increasing the number of staff levels, possibly doubling them in most of the cases that they've done it, purely from doing this piece of exercise that we're going to do over the next day or so. In front of you, you will have 3 documents that I need you to read during the course of the next hour or so, okay? So the first document you'll have, so literally jot a number at the top of each corner, okay? So you're getting these all in the right order. So this document here, number 1. Okay? So this document is the first process in the whole procurement cycle. So let's play a game, I suppose. So Luca has now sent us through all the opportunities that's coming out of Italy. Thank you, Luca. That's wonderful. Right. I clicked on that link. It's now taken me to a tender that's now asking me to write a feasibility study into the upgrade of current street lighting stock to a smart solution in the borough of Pudding. Okay? So I clicked on Luca's link, and in order for me to bid for that particular tender, this document has come up. Okay? So as a procurer, so I'm as the procurer, I've sent this out to the market, and now I'm looking for an adequate response. Now, you're going to have to read this clearly, and then that's where the second document comes in. So the second document is this one. Okay? So I am a company called LED Limited. I am now submitting my application for the previous document said tender. Okay? And this is my application. Okay? So you're now playing the game of the procurer. Okay? So you've sent out this invitation to tender as a group. You've received this tender as part of that submission. Now, as part of this hour or 45, it'll be about an hour by the time we get through this, you should spend approximately, on your own, about 10-15 minutes reading this. Okay? Just to give you an idea of what's being asked for, make some notes, write some stuff down. Just give you a guide in order to help us all move this thing forward. After the first 15 minutes, I'll do a sort of a roll call, and I'll ask you all then to kind of then read this. Okay, so this will take you probably about 20 odd minutes to read. Okay, it's a bit bigger than the other one. Again, what I'd encourage you to do is quickly read this as fast as you can, and then side by side, read both of them together. Okay, this is going to help you on the next stage. Your role, if you wish to accept, you have to accept it here, is to critique this. Okay? Critique. Find the good points, find the bad points, and score the sections. You will see in the invitation to tender on bullet point 2.0 a specification of requirements, an evaluation criteria and scoring methodology, and on the one before last page you'll also see a rating of response. Okay? This is in your first document, in this document here. So your procurement documentation is giving you the scoring methodology and the scores that you give each question. Now again, you're using this as your foundation in order to evaluate this. So 15 minutes, 20 minutes to read. Then as a group, you will discuss this document. Okay?
Okay, more answers, guys. Let's have a look. Okay. Key weaknesses, I think you all picked up on these. LED did not provide enough detail and evidence to enable the evaluators at the end of the day to score them highly. In other words, without that evidence, you can't score them highly. The reality is, you probably could have done really, really well in that section, with no prescriptive evidence, and you can't score them highly. Three key things that were missing. Relevance. We touched upon that. How were those particular contracts they described actually relevant to the contract? First point. Second point, again, I think we picked up on this. How is the client going to benefit from their experience? They didn't sell the benefits of their experience. At the end of the day, it's all about the client, it's all about you. Third point, were those contracts delivered successfully? We don't know. We have no idea. So vital, as you say, put in client testimonials or some sort of statistics to indicate those contracts were delivered well. That's kind of rubber stamping what we've done, and it gives the evaluators, it gives procurers confidence in you as an organisation. So those are key points. Into detail now. Relevance, lots of things missing. There was limited contract size information. We didn't know how big those contracts are. We were left guessing how big those contracts were. Were they a £10,000 contract? Were they a £95,000 contract, which was pretty much in line, if I remember rightly, with the value of the contract the procurer was asking for? Didn't have start and end dates. Was it a 2-week contract? Was it a 2-year contract? We didn't know. We were left guessing. Limited client and customer details. Was it a large blue chip client? Was it somebody quite insignificant? Again, there was missing details in some of the examples there. What did those contracts involve? We don't really know. It was so high level, it was so generic, that we didn't have that information. Again, it doesn't give the evaluator confidence. I think somebody mentioned it would be far better to have more detail on a smaller number of contracts. So instead of say 6 or 7 examples, you could have 2 or 3 case studies, highly relevant, literally ticking off all the different areas of the specification. And that would probably be far more fit for purpose in the way they presented it. Second question, how would the client benefit from the experience? Again, we didn't know. We didn't know how the various case studies or the various descriptions of the contract as they presented them, how was that work carried out? What were the mechanics of how they carried out that work? How does it sell, if you like, the experience of you as an organisation to the client organisation? How client problem solved? Again, you're demonstrating your experience. Any particular challenges, difficulties? That information was presented as well. What about lessons learned from past contracts, which would mean that you as the supplier can hit the ground running and you can avoid, if you like, learning curves in waste time. Again, in those case studies, you could have presented some further information about client expectations. It may be that the clients have particular quality expectations, they might have particular expectations in terms of by what point the contract had to be delivered. You know, if it was a very tight deadline, you could have said that in the actual description itself. So lots of, if you like, tricks missed in terms of selling your case. It mentions in the slide that one contract, LED Limited, will assume and council knew all about them. Procurers, evaluators are not allowed by law to make any assumptions. It has to be there prescriptively in black and white to people. And again, as we say, case studies would have been a much better way of presenting that. Final point, where was the evidence of those contracts being delivered? Well, we didn't have any of that information at all. So lots of tricks missed there, which you picked up. Okay, it's just some other issues. There were things in the specification that LED seemed to miss out entirely. The aspects of that specification. So again, you ask yourself, were they actually copy and pasting some of that information from previous contracts? Have they actually read the tender, the invitation to tender properly in the first place? Doesn't give you as an evaluator confidence. Yeah. One of the contracts they mentioned, there was slight disruption to the resident student population. That opens up all sorts of questions, concerns, anxieties, worries. Would you want to get into bed with that particular supplier? Again, it's better not to mention something like that. If you're going to mention it, you need to provide some context to mitigate that risk.